The sky over Geneva burned with light that wasn't the sun. People stopped in the streets, shielding their eyes as massive ships descended through the clouds. The vessels were beautiful in a way that made human technology look like children's toys. They gleamed with colors that seemed to shift and change, their surfaces smooth as polished mirrors. Deho stood at the window of the United Earth Council chamber, watching the largest ship settle into position above Lake Geneva. His reflection in the glass showed a man in his 50s, gray touching his temples, wearing the formal diplomatic uniform of Earth. His hands were steady, but his heart hammered in his chest. This was the moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. They were not alone. Behind him, the council chamber filled with voices. Representatives from every nation spoke at once, some excited, others afraid. Mirai stood near the tactical display, her military uniform crisp and proper. She was younger than Deho, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. While others celebrated or panicked, she studied the ships with the cold assessment of a soldier. "They're not showing any weapons," someone said. Mirai's lips tightened. "Or they're showing exactly what they want us to see." The communication came through every device on Earth simultaneously. A voice speaking perfect English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and hundreds of other languages at once. The translation was flawless. "People of Earth, we greet you in peace. We are the Galactic Concordat, a union of civilized species that has existed for 5,000 of your years. We have watched your progress with great interest. Today we extend our hand in friendship. We wish to welcome you to the greater galactic community." The council chamber erupted in noise again. Deho raised his hand for silence. As senior diplomat, the weight of this moment fell on his shoulders. He activated his communicator. "On behalf of the United Earth government, we welcome you. We accept your offer to meet and discuss our future together." The aliens arrived 3 hours later. They came in a smaller craft that landed in the plaza outside the council building. When the door opened, the being that emerged was like nothing from Earth. It stood on 6 legs, its body covered in a chitinous shell that reflected rainbow colors. Its head had multiple eyes arranged in a cluster, and when it spoke, its mandibles moved in a way that was both fascinating and unsettling. "I am Ambassador Velthar of the Concordat. It is an honor to meet a new species worthy of joining our civilization." The translator device on its chest turned its clicking sounds into human speech. Deho met the ambassador in the plaza, camera drones broadcasting the moment to every corner of Earth. They had rehearsed this moment countless times, but nothing prepared him for the reality. He extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Velthar looked at the hand for a moment, then raised one of its limbs to touch Deho's palm. The ambassador's shell was cool and smooth. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador." The first day of meetings was overwhelming. Velthar brought gifts, star charts showing humanity's position in the galaxy, samples of alien technology, and recordings of other species in the Concordat. Hyun-woo, Earth's chief xenobiologist, could barely contain his excitement as he examined biological data from dozens of alien worlds. "This is incredible," Hyun-woo whispered to Deho during a break. "Their medical technology alone could save millions of lives. They can cure diseases we've been fighting for generations." But as the talks continued, Deho began to notice patterns in how Velthar spoke. The ambassador was polite, even friendly, but there was something else beneath the words. A tone of superiority, the way a teacher might speak to a young child. Of course, as a junior member species, Earth would have certain restrictions, Velthar explained that evening. You would need guidance as you integrate into galactic society. Your technology must be reviewed and approved. Your expansion into space would be coordinated with our established territories. Restrictions? Mirai asked. She had been quiet for most of the talks, but now her voice cut through the room. What kind of restrictions? Nothing that should concern you, Velthar said, his translator making his tone sound almost amused. Simply the protocols we use with all new species. For your own protection, of course. The galaxy can be dangerous for those who are unprepared. Deho and Mirai exchanged glances. Later that night, after the aliens returned to their ship, the human leadership met in a secure room deep underground. I don't like it, Mirai said immediately. Junior member species, restrictions, guidance, these are just nice words for control. We don't know that, one of the other council members argued. They've given us no reason to suspect hostile intent. Look at the technology they're offering to share. Technology they're offering to share under their supervision, Mirai countered. Did you notice they want to inspect our military capabilities? They call it standard protocol. But why would a peaceful organization need to catalog our defenses? Hyunwoo nodded slowly. She has a point. I've been reviewing the data they provided. It's impressive, but it's also selective. They show us their medical advances and civilian technology, but I've seen almost nothing about their military capabilities. For a civilization that claims to keep peace in the galaxy, that's suspicious. Daeho sat in silence, processing everything. His instinct told him that Mirai was right to be cautious, but the opportunity the Concordat presented was enormous. Access to the stars, to knowledge and technology that could transform human civilization. We proceed carefully, he finally said. We accept their offer of friendship and membership. We participate in their cultural exchange and technology sharing, but we watch everything they do. Every word, every action, and we prepare for the possibility that their intentions are not as pure as they claim. What about the military inspection they requested? Asked Admiral Jiho, who had been silent until now. Mirai smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We show them exactly what they expect to see. We show them a primitive species that poses no threat. We show them what they want to believe about us. The meeting continued late into the night. Plans were made, contingencies discussed, roles assigned. By the time they emerged, dawn was breaking over Geneva. The alien ship still hung in the sky, beautiful and terrible. Daeho returned to his office and looked out at those ships. Somewhere up there, Velthar and the other aliens were probably congratulating themselves on finding another naive species to add to their collection. Let them believe that, Daeho thought. Let them think humanity was young and foolish and easy to control. They would learn the truth soon enough. But for now, humanity would smile and nod and play the role of grateful children being welcomed into a larger family. They would accept the gifts and the technology and the promises of friendship, and while the aliens watched the surface, humanity would prepare in the shadows. Because if there was one thing humans had learned from their own bloody history, it was this. Trust was earned, not given. And those who offered friendship too easily usually wanted something in return. The question was, what did the Concordat really want from Earth, and what would they do when humanity refused to give it? The military demonstration took place 3 weeks after first contact. Velthar and a delegation of Concordat observers arrived at the Peterson Space Force base in Colorado, where humanity had agreed to showcase its defensive capabilities. Mirai watched from the command center as the alien shuttle touched down on the landing pad. Remember, she said into her communicator, everything we show them today is at least 50 years old. Nothing current. Nothing classified. Make it look good, but make it look primitive. Admiral Jiho stood on the tarmac in his dress uniform, waiting to greet their guests. He was a tall man with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had spent his entire life in service. When Velthar emerged from the shuttle, Jiho saluted crisply. Ambassador, welcome. We're honored to show you the forces that protect Earth. I'm certain it will be most enlightening, Velthar replied. His tone carried that same condescending note that had become familiar over the past weeks. The Concordat is always interested in understanding the capabilities of our new members. The tour began with the atmospheric fighters. Sleek jets screamed across the sky, performing maneuvers that would have been impossible decades ago. The alien observers watched politely, their multiple eyes tracking the aircraft. Velthar made notes on a device that floated beside him. Impressive for your level of development, the ambassador commented. Though, of course, these craft would be helpless against any serious threat. The fuel requirements alone make them impractical for real combat. Jiho smiled and nodded, as if accepting wisdom from a teacher. Inside, he thought about the actual fighters humanity used now. Craft that didn't need fuel because they ran on contained fusion reactions. Vessels that could accelerate at speeds that would turn these demonstration jets into debris. But Velthar didn't need to know that. Next came the railgun demonstration. They had brought out an old model, one that had been retired from active service years ago. It fired a tungsten projectile at hypersonic speeds, punching through a series of armored targets downrange. The sound was like thunder and the destruction was impressive. Kinetic weapons, Velthar observed. How quaint. We used similar technology 3,000 years ago, before we developed energy-based systems, still adequate for a developing species. We're proud of them, Jiho said humbly. They've served us well. The tour continued into space. The aliens were taken to orbit aboard a shuttle that Mirai had specifically chosen because it was slow and used older propulsion systems. In orbit, They observed Earth's defense satellites, a network of weapons platforms that could intercept missiles and defend against debris. What the aliens didn't see were the thousands of other satellites hidden in stealth fields, armed with weapons that could crack a moon in half. They didn't see the real defense grid that surrounded Earth like a steel cocoon. They saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Veltar seemed satisfied. Your species shows promise, he told Jiho as they returned to Earth. With proper guidance from the Concordat, you will eventually develop adequate defenses. In the meantime, we will station several protection vessels in your system. For your safety, of course. Of course, Jiho agreed. We're grateful for your concern. While the military demonstrations continued, Selman worked in a different kind of shadows. She was a small woman with quick fingers and quicker mind, trained in intelligence operations that officially didn't exist. Her job was simple: find out what the aliens were really doing. The Concordat had brought their own observation equipment to Earth, scanners and sensors that they claimed were for scientific study. But Somin's monitoring showed something different. The aliens were mapping everything: power grids, communication networks, industrial centers, population distributions. They were building a complete profile of human infrastructure. They're not just observing, Somin reported to Mirai in a secure communication. They're cataloging targets or assets. I'm not sure which is worse. Can you access their systems? Mirai asked. Working on it. Their security is good, but not perfect. Give me time. Hyunwoo noticed something else. As the cultural exchange continued, he spent time with the Concordat scientists. They shared information about biology, chemistry, and physics. But whenever Hyunwoo mentioned human achievements, the aliens would dismiss them. You've achieved fusion power? How nice. We had that millennia ago. You're exploring quantum mechanics? A good start. Perhaps in a few centuries you'll understand it as we do. Your medical nanobots are fascinating for a primitive design. We can show you how to make them properly. Every accomplishment was minimized. Every achievement was treated as a child's first step. It bothered Hyunwoo deeply. Not because of wounded pride, but because it revealed something about how the Concordat viewed humanity. They didn't see equals. They saw resources to be managed. He shared his concerns with Daeho during one of their private meetings. The diplomat listened carefully, his face growing darker with each observation. They're establishing a narrative, Daeho said quietly, making sure we see ourselves as inferior, dependent, in need of their guidance and protection. It's working on some people, Hyunwoo admitted. I've seen the news broadcasts. Half of Earth thinks the Concordat is our salvation. They want to hand over everything to our new friends. And the other half? Growing more suspicious every day. We're heading for a division, Daeho. If we're not careful, Earth could tear itself apart over this. That night, Mirai called an emergency meeting of the true leadership, not the public council that met with Veltar, but the shadow group that made the real decisions. They met in a bunker beneath the lunar surface, secure from any surveillance. We need to make a decision, Mirai said. Do we continue this charade or do we start asking harder questions? We can't show our hand yet, Daeho argued. We still don't know their true intentions. Suspicion isn't proof. Then we get proof, someone said. She stood and activated a holographic display. I've been working on cracking their communication systems. It's taken weeks, but I found a weakness, a pattern in how their quantum encryption cycles. Give me another week, maybe 2, and I can intercept their transmissions. Do it, Mirai ordered. But carefully. If they catch you, it could trigger exactly the kind of confrontation we're trying to avoid. Jiho spoke up from his position near the tactical display. In the meantime, we continue the deception. I have teams working on displaying more of our capabilities. Old missiles, outdated defense systems, retired spacecraft. We'll keep them convinced that we're helpless children who need their protection. What about our actual forces? One of the other commanders asked. Mirai smiled, mobilizing as we speak, but quietly. The shipyards on the dark side of the moon are increasing production. The Mars facilities are activating additional construction bays. The belt mining operations are doubling their output. We're building up, but we're doing it where they can't see. And if they do see? Daeho asked. Then we move to the next phase sooner than planned, Mirai said. But I don't think they will. They're too confident, too certain of their superiority. It blinds them. The meeting continued for hours, reviewing every aspect of their preparations. When it finally ended, the group dispersed, each returning to their public roles. Playing their parts in the Great Deception, Deho returned to Geneva, where he would smile at Velthar and accept more condescending advice about how humanity should develop. Jiho went back to showing off obsolete weapons and pretending to be impressed by alien technology. Hyunwoo continued his cultural exchanges, carefully feeding the aliens' egos while learning everything he could about their weaknesses. And Samin worked through the night, her fingers flying over holographic keyboards, diving deeper into the alien communication network. She was close now. She could feel it. Soon, they would know the truth about the Concordate's intentions. Whatever that truth was, humanity would be ready. Because while the aliens had been watching Earth's surface, cataloging its defenses and measuring its capabilities, humanity had been preparing in the depths of space, building, planning, getting ready for a war they hoped would never come. But if it did come, the Concordate was going to learn a hard lesson. Never underestimate a species that grew up fighting itself. Never assume that weakness is real just because it's what you see. And never ever mistake patience for helplessness. The deception continued. The stage was set. Soon, the curtain would rise on the real show. Soman's eyes burned from staring at screens for 18 hours straight. Empty coffee cups littered her workstation in the underground facility beneath Seoul. Her fingers trembled slightly as they moved across the holographic interface, but she didn't dare stop now. She was so close. The Concordate's quantum encryption had a rhythm to it, a pattern that repeated every 7 hours and 43 minutes. Most codebreakers would never notice it, because the pattern existed across multiple frequencies simultaneously. But Somin had help from Taeyong, a young cybersecurity expert who thought in dimensions most people couldn't visualize. There, Taeyong said suddenly, pointing at a cascade of data flowing across his screen. The 7th harmonic. That's where they're vulnerable. Soman adjusted her approach, following Taeyong's insight. The encryption resisted, then suddenly cracked open like a shell. Data poured through, raw and unfiltered. Communication between Concordate vessels. Reports from Velthar to his superiors. Command directives. Status updates. And the truth. Soman's hands froze over the controls as she read. Her face went pale. Get Deho. Get Mireille. Get everyone. Now. 2 hours later, the emergency council convened in the same lunar bunker they'd used before. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Soman stood at the main display, her exhaustion forgotten in the face of what she had discovered. I've decrypted the Concordate's internal communications, she began without preamble. What I found is worse than we suspected. She activated the display. Alien text appeared, with human translation scrolling beside it. This is from Velthar to the Concordate Central Command sent 6 days ago, Soman said. Her voice was steady, but her hands clenched into fists. I'll read the relevant parts. She cleared her throat and began. Subject: Earth Integration Assessment. The human species continues to demonstrate expected naivety. Their military capabilities are primitive and pose no threat to Concordate operations. Recommend proceeding with Standard Protocol 7. Timeline advanced to 6 months. The system's resources are more abundant than initial surveys suggested. Particular value in the third planet's rare minerals and the outer system's helium reserves. Deho felt his stomach drop. Standard Protocol 7, what is that? Soman pulled up another document. I found the protocol database. Protocol 7 is what they use for species they classify as resource-rich, technologically inferior, strategically valuable. It's a 4-phase process. She displayed the phases on screen. Her voice grew harder with each one. Phase 1, Contact and Assessment. Make peaceful contact. Evaluate the species' capabilities and resources. This is what they've been doing for the past month. Phase 2, Integration Proposal. Offer membership in the Concordate. Provide selective technology sharing. Create dependence. Make the target species feel grateful and inferior. We're in this phase now. Phase 3, Sovereignty Transfer. Gradually assume control of the species' government, military, and economy. They call it guided development. It's really absorption. The species remains nominally independent but has no real power. Phase 4, Resource Extraction. Once control is established, strip the system of valuable resources. The local species is given enough to survive, but exists primarily to serve Concordate interests. This phase lasts indefinitely. The room was silent. Then everyone started talking at once. How many species have they done this to? Someone demanded. Soman pulled up another file. 47. 47 different intelligent species, all now classified as junior members under protectorate status. That's their official term. The reality is slavery with a friendly name. Hyunwoo stood up, his face flushed with anger. The cultural exchanges, the technology sharing, the friendly advice, it was all manipulation. Worse than that, Taeyong added, bringing up his own findings. I tracked their resource surveys. They've been secretly scanning our entire solar system. They know about the asteroid belt's mineral wealth, the helium-3 in Jupiter's atmosphere, the rare elements in our outer planets. They even found the water ice on Ceres and Europa. They've cataloged everything we have. Mirai slammed her fist on the table, and they think we're too primitive to stop them from taking it. Daeho sat down heavily, the weight of the situation crushing down on him. He had hoped for peace. He had wanted to believe that humanity's first contact would be the beginning of something beautiful. Instead, it was a trap, a gilded cage that 47 other species had already walked into. What happened to those other species? He asked quietly. The 47? Sumin pulled up more files, though her expression said she didn't want to. Most accepted the Concordate's terms willingly, at least at first. They believed the promises. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. Their governments had been replaced by Concordate administrators. Their militaries had been upgraded with Concordate weapons they didn't know how to build or maintain. Their economies had been restructured around Concordate needs. Any resist? Mirai asked. 3 tried. The files classify them as integration complications. One species was completely wiped out as an example to others. The other 2 were bombed back to pre-industrial technology and then integrated by force. They're still alive, but they'll never be free. The Concordate keeps them dependent generation after generation. The horror of it settled over the room. This wasn't just exploitation. It was systematic, calculated, and refined over thousands of years. The Concordate had turned species-wide slavery into an efficient process. How long do we have? Daeho asked. Velthar's report recommends starting Phase 3 in 6 months, Soman replied. They'll arrive with what they call an assistance fleet, ships full of advisors, administrators, and soldiers. Once they're embedded in our infrastructure, removing them will be almost impossible. Not almost, Mirai corrected. Completely impossible without destroying ourselves in the process. That's the trap. By the time a species realizes what's happening, they're so dependent on Concordate technology and support that rebellion means suicide. So what do we do? Jiho asked. We can't let them enslave us. But if we refuse, they'll treat us like those other species who resisted. Mirai stood up and her face held an expression that was almost a smile. We do what we've been preparing for since the moment they arrived. We show them that humanity is not like the other 47 species. We show them that their assessment was wrong. We show them what we really are. 6 months isn't enough time to build up our forces, one of the commanders objected. We're not building up, Mirai said. We've been building for 60 years. Ever since we first detected artificial signals from deep space and realized we weren't alone. While they've been watching us, we've been preparing for exactly this scenario. She activated a different display. What appeared made several council members gasp. Fleet readiness reports, weapons system inventories, defense platform locations, the true extent of humanity's military capabilities. We've been showing them what they expected to see, Mirai continued. Old technology, weak defenses, a species that needs protection. But that was never real. The real Earth military has been hidden in the shadows waiting. Daeho looked at the numbers and felt hope spark in his chest for the first time since Soman had begun her briefing. Can we win? Win? Mirai's smile grew sharper. When they arrive with their assistance fleet, expecting grateful children to welcome them, they're going to get the shock of their existence. We're not going to win, Daeho. We're going to dominate. And then? Hyunwoo asked. After we beat them? They have a 5,000-year-old empire. They'll send more ships. Then we free the 47 enslaved species, Mirai said simply. We tear down their empire. We show the galaxy that the Concordate's age of exploitation is over. The room erupted in discussion again. Plans were made, timelines adjusted, resources allocated. The deception would continue, but now with a specific endpoint. When the Concordate's assistance fleet arrived, they would find Earth ready. Not ready to submit, ready to fight. As the meeting broke up, Daeho pulled Soman aside. Thank you. I know that wasn't easy breaking into their systems. Soman shook her head. It was necessary. But Daeho, there's one more thing you should know. What? The files mentioned something they call primitive species fear assessment. They believe we're terrified of them, that we'll do anything to avoid conflict because we've never faced an alien threat before. Daeho laughed bitterly. They don't know us at all, do they? No, Soman agreed. They don't understand that humanity's greatest fear has always been each other. We've fought wars that nearly destroyed our own planet. We've built weapons that could end all life on Earth. We've stared into the abyss of our own extinction and chose to step back from the edge. And that history, Daeho said slowly, taught us how to survive anything. Exactly. The Concordat thinks we're naive children. They're about to learn that Earth's children grew up in hell and became very, very good at fighting their way out. The dark side of the moon had always been hidden from Earth's view, which made it perfect for humanity's greatest secret. Jiho stood in the observation deck of Facility Prime, looking out at what should have been empty lunar craters. Instead, he saw the largest military shipyard humanity had ever constructed. Massive doors opened in the lunar surface, each one large enough to swallow a city block. From these hidden bays, ships emerged, not the old demonstration vessels they'd shown the Concordat. These were the real military vessels of the United Earth Defense Force. Mirai stood beside Jiho, her reflection ghostly in the observation glass. Impressive, isn't it? We've been building here for 40 years. The Concordat scanned the moon dozens of times and never found any of this. How? Jiho asked. Their sensors are advanced. Not as advanced as they think. Youngsu can explain it better than me. As if summoned, the chief engineer appeared behind them. Youngsu was a short man with permanent grease stains on his hands and the excited energy of someone who loved his work. He practically bounced as he joined them at the window. The trick is quantum stealth fields, Youngsu explained. The Concordat never developed them because they never needed to. Why hide when you're always the biggest threat in the room? But humans? We've been hiding things from each other for thousands of years. We're really good at it. He gestured at the shipyards below. Every facility, every ship, every weapon platform is wrapped in a quantum stealth field. It doesn't just make things invisible. It makes them undetectable across every spectrum. Radiothermal, gravitational, quantum. We could park a battleship next to Velthar's ship and he'd never know it was there. Show me what we have, Mirai said. Youngsu pulled up a holographic display that showed the full extent of Earth's hidden military. The numbers made Jiho blink in surprise. 2,347 combat vessels, Youngsu began, ranging from Corvette-class scouts to Dreadnought-class capital ships. Every single one built in secret over the past 4 decades. He zoomed in on one of the larger vessels. This is the EDS Indomitable, our first dreadnought. Captain Heijin commands her. The ship is 2 kilometers long and carries enough firepower to glass a small planet. But it's not the size that makes it deadly. The display shifted to show the ship's weapon systems. We've developed technology the Concordat doesn't have. Couldn't have because they've been using the same systems for millennia. They stopped innovating because they never faced a real threat. What kind of technology? Jiho asked. Youngsu's eyes lit up. This was clearly his favorite part. First, quantum entanglement weapons. Traditional shields work by dispersing or absorbing energy, but our quantum weapons don't travel through normal space. They phase through shields like they're not even there. By the time the target realizes they've been hit, the damage is already done. He pulled up another system. Second, gravity manipulation drives. The Concordat still uses conventional propulsion, fusion drives, antimatter engines, things that push ships forward through space. Our drives manipulate gravity itself. We don't push through space. We pull space toward us. The result is instant acceleration to any speed we want with no G-force on the crew. That's impossible, Jiho said. We thought so too until we cracked the math 15 years ago. The first test nearly created a black hole by accident. But now we've perfected it. Youngsu grinned. A Concordat ship takes hours to build up to attack speed. Our ships can go from stationary to combat velocity in seconds. Mirai pointed at another weapon system on the display. What about these nano-swarm missiles? Oh, those are fun, Youngsu said. Each missile contains billions of self-replicating nanobots. When they hit a target, they don't explode. They burrow. They infiltrate every system, every circuit, every structural member. Then they dismantle the ship from the inside out at the molecular level. An enemy vessel looks fine one moment, then just comes apart. The crew doesn't even have time to scream. The casual way he described such horror made Jiho uncomfortable, but he understood the necessity. If they had to fight, they needed every advantage. "Show him the Titan project," Mirai said quietly. Youngsu's expression became serious. "That's our ultimate weapon. The thing we hope we never have to use." He pulled up classified files that required 3 separate security codes to access. "We've achieved controlled singularity generation. We can create microscopic black holes, contain them, and release them as weapons. 1 Titan warhead can consume an enemy capital ship in seconds. The black hole evaporates quickly due to Hawking radiation, so there's no permanent danger, but while it exists, it's unstoppable. No shield can block it. No armor can withstand it. How many do we have?" Jiho asked. 50 warheads, spread across our fleet. We hope to never fire a single one, but if the Concordat forces our hand, we can end their fleet before they even understand what's happening." Mirai turned away from the window. "Come on. I want you to meet Captain Heejin and see the Indomitable in person." They took a shuttle from the moon facility to the ship's location. It hung in space beyond Neptune's orbit, hidden among the Kuiper belt objects. Even knowing its coordinates, Jiho couldn't see it until Youngsu deactivated the stealth field. The ship appeared like a ghost materializing from nothing. It was beautiful in a purely functional way, all sharp angles and efficient design. Every surface bristled with weapons. This was not a ship built for exploration or science. This was a ship built for one purpose: war. Captain Heejin met them in the docking bay. She was younger than Jiho expected, probably in her early 40s with calm eyes that missed nothing. She saluted crisply. "Admiral, General, welcome aboard the Indomitable." "At ease, Captain," Jiho said. "I wanted to see our flagship before the Concordat arrives." Heejin smiled. "Then let me give you the tour." The ship was a city of steel and technology. Thousands of crew members worked at stations throughout its vast interior. They passed armories full of weapons, medical bays with technology that could regrow limbs, engineering sections where reactors hummed with barely contained power. "Every system has triple redundancy," Heejin explained as they walked. "We can lose 2/3 of the ship and still fight. The crew trains for 18 hours a day. We've run combat simulations against Concordat vessels using the data we gathered during their visit." "How do we perform?" Mirai asked. "In simulations, we can take on 50 Concordat ships simultaneously and win with minimal losses. Their tactics are predictable because they've never faced a peer opponent. They rely on superior technology to overwhelm inferior forces. But we're not inferior." They reached the bridge, a circular room with holographic displays showing everything within a light year. Heejin gestured at the tactical display. "When the Concordat assistance fleet arrives, they'll expect to find Earth helpless. Instead, they'll find themselves surrounded by our fleet. Every ship they have will be targeted before they even realize we're there. If they attack, we'll destroy them. If they surrender, we'll spare them. Either way, Earth will not be enslaved." Jiho looked at the display and felt pride swell in his chest. For decades, while the world worried about resources and politics and daily problems, people like Youngsu and Heejin had been preparing. They'd built this fleet in secret, using resources carefully diverted from public projects. They'd trained crews and developed weapons and planned for a war they hoped would never come. But it was coming now. The Concordat had forced this confrontation the moment they decided Earth would be their next victim. "There's one thing I don't understand," Jiho said. "How did we develop all this without the Concordat noticing? We've been transmitting radio signals for over a century. They must have been watching us for decades before they made contact." Youngsu and Heejin exchanged glances. Finally, Youngsu spoke. "They were watching us, but they saw what they expected to see. A species fighting itself, nations competing for resources, conflicts and wars. They interpreted our history as weakness. They thought because we fought each other we'd be easy to control. They never considered," Heejin added, "that a species which fights itself constantly might become really, really good at fighting. Every weapon we developed to use against each other. Every tactic we learned in blood. Our entire history is a training manual for warfare." Mirai nodded. "The Concordat has been peaceful for thousands of years. They use force, but only against species that can't fight back. They've forgotten what real war looks like, what desperation drives people to create. They've never faced an opponent that was actually dangerous." "Until now," Jiho said softly. "Until now," Mirai agreed. They stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the tactical displays showing Earth's hidden fleet. 2,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of human ingenuity and desperation. Each one proof that when humanity was threatened, it didn't surrender. It adapted, it built, it prepared. The Concordat thought they were coming to integrate another helpless species. They thought Earth would welcome them with gratitude and submission. They thought 47 successful conquests meant the 48th would be just as easy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. How long until their fleet arrives? Jiho asked. 3 months, Mirai said. We use that time to finalize preparations. Move our forces into position. Continue the deception until the Concordat assistance fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning. 300 ships, each one massive and gleaming, arranged in a formation designed to look protective while actually being a blockade. No ship would leave Earth without Concordat permission. No signal would escape without being monitored. The cage was closing. Velthar stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Eternal Harmony, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. The small blue planet looked so peaceful, so vulnerable. In 6 months, it had become his favorite assignment. The humans were so eager to please, so grateful for Concordat attention. This integration would be one of the smoothest yet. Begin orbital insertion, he commanded. Deploy the welcome message on all frequencies. On Earth, Deho watched the fleet arrive with a calm that surprised him. 3 months ago, this sight would have terrified him. Now, knowing what waited in the shadows, he felt only a cold determination. The Concordat's message played across every screen on Earth. Velthar's translated voice sounded warm and friendly. People of Earth, we return as promised with the resources and support to guide you into the galactic community. Our assistance fleet brings administrators, teachers, and protectors. We will help restructure your government for efficient integration. We will upgrade your technology to Concordat standards. We will ensure your safety and prosperity as junior members of our great civilization. The speech continued, laying out exactly what would happen, how Earth's militaries would be placed under Concordat oversight, how planetary resources would be managed by Concordat experts, how human culture would be preserved in databases while actual society was reshaped. All of it delivered with a smile as if enslavement was a gift. Daiho listened to the entire speech. Then he opened a channel to the Concordat flagship. Ambassador Velthar, this is Deho of Earth. We need to speak. In person, immediately. Velthar seemed surprised by the urgency but agreed. An hour later, he arrived at the Geneva Council chamber with a delegation of Concordat officials. They looked pleased with themselves, already preparing to take control. Deho met them in the main hall. Behind him stood Mirai, Jiho, Hyunwoo, and Salmon. Their faces were calm, but their eyes were hard. Ambassador Velthar, Deho began, we appreciate your offer. We've given it careful consideration over these past months. Excellent, Velthar clicked happily. Then you're ready to sign the integration protocols? We can begin immediately. No, Deho said simply. We're not signing anything. We're rejecting your offer entirely. The silence that followed was absolute. Velthar's multiple eyes blinked in confusion. I don't understand. This is not how integration works. You don't reject the Concordat. We're offering you protection, technology, guidance. You're offering slavery dressed in pretty words, Mirai cut in. We know what you really want. We've known for months. She nodded to Soman, who activated a holographic display. Concordat communications appeared, scrolling through the evidence of their exploitation plan. Protocol 7, Resource Extraction Timelines. Reports on the 47 enslaved species. Velthar's shell paled. You broke our encryption? Impossible. Our security is inadequate, Soman finished. We've been reading your communications since week 4. We know everything. What you did to the other species, what you plan to do to us, all of it. This changes nothing, Velthar said, recovering his composure. You've seen our fleet. 300 vessels surround your planet. You have no choice but to accept our terms. Resist and you'll be treated like the others who foolishly opposed us. We will destroy your civilization and rebuild it under our control. Daiho stepped forward. Before you make threats you can't take back, let me ask you something. Did you really believe our military demonstrations? Did you honestly think those obsolete weapons and slow ships represented humanity's true capabilities? You're a primitive species, Velthar said with certainty. We've observed you for decades. You fight among yourselves with crude technology. You've barely left your own planet. You are children playing with fire. Then you observed poorly, Deho replied. You saw what we wanted you to see. You believed what you wanted to believe, because in 5,000 years, the Concordat has never faced a species that could challenge you. You've grown arrogant, complacent, weak. Velthar's mandibles clicked in anger. You dare insult the Concordat? We who have brought peace to the galaxy? You've brought exploitation, Hyunwoo said. Slavery, oppression. You target species weaker than yourselves, strip their resources, and call it civilization. That ends today. Enough of this, Velthar snapped. He activated his communicator. Fleet Commander, the humans are proving difficult. Fire a warning shot at one of their orbital stations. Show them the consequences of defiance. On the flagship, the commander acknowledged the order. Weapons charged. Targeting systems locked onto a civilian orbital habitat. The shot fired, a brilliant beam of plasma that would vaporize the station and everyone in it. The beam struck the station's shields and dissipated harmlessly. The commander stared at his displays in confusion. Sir, their shields absorbed our shot completely. That's not possible. The technology they showed us couldn't do that. Velthar's eyes widened. Fire again. Full power. Another shot. Another miss. The civilian station sat untouched, its shields glowing softly. In the Geneva chamber, Mirai smiled. Did you think we'd leave our civilians unprotected? Every station, every habitat, every settlement in Earth orbit has military-grade shielding. Your weapons can't touch them. This is a trick, Velthar insisted, but his voice wavered. You're using Concordat technology we gave you. We're using technology we developed ourselves, Diho corrected. Technology you never bothered to create because you never needed to. But now you need it and you don't have it. He gestured to the window. Take a look at your fleet, Ambassador. Take a close look. Velthar moved to the window. At first he saw only his 300 ships arranged in their perfect blockade formation. Then the space around them began to shimmer. Stealth fields deactivated across the solar system. Ships appeared. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They materialized from nothing, surrounding the Concordat fleet completely. Human vessels of every size, from small corvettes to massive dreadnoughts, each one bristling with weapons that were now pointed directly at the Concordat ships. What is this? Velthar whispered. This is Earth's real military, Jiho said. The one we've been building while you watched our planet with your smug certainty. We have 2,347 combat vessels. Every single one is more advanced than anything in your fleet. You're not surrounding us, Ambassador. We're surrounding you. On the Concordat flagship, alarms blared as sensors finally detected the human fleet. The commander's voice shook as he reported to Velthar. Sir, we're outnumbered 7-1. Their vessels are using technology our sensors can barely read. Power signatures beyond anything we've encountered. They have us completely boxed in. Velthar turned back to Deho, his earlier arrogance gone. This is impossible. We've been observing you. We know your capabilities. You know what we showed you, Daiho replied. Did you really think a species that conquered its own planet? That built cities and split atoms and reached for the stars? Did you really think we were so naive? We've been fighting wars for thousands of years, Ambassador. We know how to hide our strength. We know how to prepare for threats. And we know how to recognize predators when they come knocking. Mirai activated another display, showing the positions of both fleets in real time. Here's your situation. Your fleet is surrounded and outgunned. Your shields can't stop our weapons. Your drives are slower than ours. You can't fight and you can't run. You have exactly one option. Surrender, Jiho finished. Velthar looked at the display, at the human ships boxing in his fleet, at the tactical situation that had turned from triumph to disaster in mere minutes. His mind raced, trying to find a way out. The Concordat will send more ships. Bigger fleets. You've only delayed the inevitable. Will they? Deho asked. When we show the galaxy what you really are? When we free the 47 species you've enslaved? When we broadcast the truth about your civilization across every frequency? How many of your junior members do you think will stay loyal once they know they have an alternative? You're threatening the entire galactic order, Velthar said desperately. No, Deho corrected. We're ending an age of exploitation and beginning something better, an alliance of equals. A true galactic community where species cooperate because they choose to, not because they're forced. He stepped closer to Velthar, his voice hard as steel. You came to Earth thinking we were prey. You were wrong. Humanity doesn't bow. We don't submit. We don't become anyone's slaves. We are the species that looked at an atom and split it open. We're the people who stood on our own moon and planted our flag. We fought wars that nearly destroyed us and learned from them. Every weapon you could imagine, we've already invented. Every tactic you know, we know better. You picked the wrong planet to conquer, Ambassador. Velthar slumped. The fight drained. The Concordat fleet's surrender lasted exactly 17 minutes. That was how long it took for the fleet commander, a proud military officer named Krathkor, to override Velthar's orders and decide that no primitive species would humiliate the mighty Concordat without consequences. All ships charge weapons, Krathkor commanded from the flagship. Target the human vessels. We show them what happens to species who dare resist. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Heejin watched the Concordat ships power up their weapons. She had expected this. Predators didn't surrender easily, especially when they'd never been prey before. Admiral Jiho, she said calmly into her communicator. The Concordat fleet is preparing to attack, requesting permission to engage. Jiho's voice came back immediately. You are authorized to defend Earth and disable the hostile fleet. Rules of engagement. Demonstrate our superiority but minimize casualties. We want survivors who can tell the galaxy what happened here. Understood, Heejin replied. She turned to her tactical officer. Alert all vessels. Battle stations. Activate combat protocols. Show them what human engineering can do. Across the human fleet, 2,000 ships prepared for battle. Crews that had trained for years moved with practiced efficiency. Weapon systems came online. Shields strengthened. The gravity drives hummed with barely contained power. Krathkor fired first. The Concordat flagship's main plasma cannon unleashed a beam that could vaporize a city. It struck the Indomitable's shields and splashed across them like water on stone. The human dreadnought didn't even shudder. Return fire, Heejin ordered. One quantum lance. Low power. Target their weapon systems only. The Indomitable's quantum weapons fired. The shot was invisible to the naked eye, existing partially in another dimension. It passed through the Concordat flagship's shields as if they weren't there and struck the plasma cannon. The weapon system simply stopped working, its circuitry disrupted at the quantum level. Krathkor stared at his displays in horror. How did they bypass our shields? That's impossible. All ships open fire, he commanded desperately. Full barrage. 300 Concordat vessels unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams, kinetic missiles, energy torpedoes. The barrage was enough to destroy a small fleet. It struck the human ships and accomplished nothing. The shields absorbed every shot. Their turn, Heejin said quietly. The human fleet responded, not with the devastating firepower they possessed, but with surgical precision. Quantum weapons phased through shields and disabled engines. Nanoswarm missiles struck hulls and began disassembling weapon systems. Gravity manipulation created localized fields that yanked Concordat ships out of formation and left them spinning helplessly in space. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. In the Geneva chamber, Velthar watched through a live feed as his fleet was systematically dismantled. His people, who had dominated the galaxy for millennia, were being handled like children by a species they'd dismissed as primitive. Stop this, he begged Deho. Please. You've made your point, have we? Deho asked. Your commander is still trying to kill us. Maybe we need to make our point more clearly. He nodded to Mirai, who opened a channel to Heejin. Captain, escalate to Phase 2 demonstration. Show them the Titan. On the Indomitable, Heejin acknowledged the order. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but the Concordat needed to understand the gap between them. Load one Titan warhead. Target the largest Concordat carrier. Fire when ready. Youngsu, monitoring from the weapon control station, initiated the launch sequence. Titan missile away. Singularity generation in 3, 2, 1. The missile struck the Concordat carrier and detonated. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to bend. A pinpoint of absolute darkness appeared, growing rapidly. It was a black hole, microscopic but terrifyingly real. The Concordat carrier twisted like paper being crumpled. Its hull shrieked as gravity beyond comprehension pulled it inward. Escape pods launched desperately as the ship was consumed. In 15 seconds, a vessel that had been 2 kilometers long was reduced to nothing. The black hole evaporated in a flash of Hawking radiation, leaving only empty space and scattered debris. Every Concordat ship stopped firing. Across their fleet, crews stared at their screens in pure terror. They had just watched a capital ship be erased from existence by a weapon they couldn't even understand. Krathkor's voice shook when he finally spoke. All ships cease fire, full stop. Do not engage the human vessels. This time there was no pride in his command, only fear. Hyejin opened a channel to the Concordat flagship. Fleet Commander Krathkor, this is Captain Hyejin of the EDS Indomitable. We have 50 more Titan warheads and the willingness to use them. Stand down immediately or we will disable every ship in your fleet. We surrender, Krathkor said quickly. Completely, unconditionally. Please no more. Jiho's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. All Concordat vessels, this is Admiral Jiho of the Earth Defense Force. Power down your weapons systems and shields. Any ship that fails to comply within 2 minutes will be disabled by force. Escape pods from destroyed vessels will be recovered and crew will be treated according to our laws of war. You have attacked a sovereign world. You are now prisoners of Earth. Across the Concordat fleet, ships began shutting down their systems. The proud armada that had arrived to enslave humanity now sat helpless in space, surrounded by human vessels. The entire battle had lasted 47 minutes. In that time, Earth's forces had destroyed or disabled 80% of the Concordat fleet without losing a single ship. It was the most one-sided military engagement in galactic history. On Earth, people watched the battle through live feeds. When the Concordat surrendered, cities erupted in celebration. They had faced extinction and emerged victorious. Humanity had proven it could defend itself against any threat. But in the Geneva chamber, Deho didn't celebrate. He looked at Veltar, who sat slumped in his chair, all his earlier arrogance gone. Do you understand now? Deho asked. Do you see why you failed? You're more advanced than we thought, Veltar said quietly. Your technology surpasses ours. It's not about technology, Hyunwoo interrupted. The Concordat has been peaceful for thousands of years. You forgot how to fight. You forgot how to innovate when survival depends on it. You became comfortable. Humanity never had that luxury, Mireille added. We've been fighting for our entire history. Nation against nation, ideology against ideology, resource against resource. We've built weapons designed to kill each other because we knew what it meant to face an enemy that wanted us dead. That desperation, that constant conflict, it taught us things you forgot. We learned to hide our strengths, Somin said. To deceive our enemies. To strike where we're unexpected. Every trick we used on you, we first used on ourselves. We learned to adapt, Jiho said. To innovate. To never assume we were safe. Every generation of weapons was built to counter the last. Every defense was designed with offense in mind. We didn't stop preparing just because we weren't actively at war. Jiho walked to the window, looking up at the disabled Concordat fleet. Your species conquered 47 others. Each time it got easier. Each time you learned that being stronger meant being right. You forgot that strength isn't permanent. You forgot that predators can become prey. He turned back to Veltar. Here's what happens now. Your fleet will remain in our custody. You will provide us with complete data on every species you've enslaved, every system you control, every resource you've stolen. And then Earth is going to do what you should have done millennia ago. What's that? Veltar asked. We're going to free them, Mireille said. All 47 species. We're going to dismantle your empire and give every world you control the chance to govern themselves. We're going to show the galaxy that the age of exploitation is over. The Concordat will never allow this, Veltar protested weakly. We have thousands of ships, hundreds of worlds. You can't fight all of us. We won't have to, Deho replied, because once the enslaved species see that freedom is possible, they'll fight for themselves. We'll just provide the weapons and support. Your empire will collapse from within. Hyunwoo stepped forward. But here's the thing, Veltar. We're not monsters. We're not conquerors. When your empire falls, we'll offer the Concordat member species, including yours, a choice. Join us in building a real galactic community, an alliance of equals where species cooperate because they choose to, not because they're forced. Or go your own way in peace. Why would you do that? Veltar asked. We tried to enslave you. Because we remember what it's like to be threatened, Deho said. We remember the fear of facing a stronger enemy. We remember wars that nearly destroyed us and the lessons we learned from them. The greatest lesson was this. Power without mercy makes you a tyrant. Mercy without power makes you a victim. But power combined with mercy? That makes you a leader. He extended his hand to Veltar again. The Concordat doesn't have to end. It just has to change. Be what you claim to be. A real alliance. A true community. Help us build something better. Velthar looked at the hand, then up at Deho's face. The human diplomat's expression was serious but not cruel. There was no triumph in his eyes, no desire for revenge. Just determinate 1 week after the battle, Velthar was brought aboard the Indomitable as a permanent guest. Not a prisoner exactly, but not free either. He had cooperated fully, providing access codes and intelligence about concorded operations. Now he sat in an observation room, staring out at Earth through the viewport, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. The door opened. Deho entered carrying 2 cups of tea. He offered one to Velthar, who took it with a nod of thanks. They sat in silence for a moment, just watching the blue planet turn slowly below them. "You asked me once how humanity achieved such power," Deho said finally. "You asked after your fleet surrendered. I never gave you a complete answer." "I've been thinking about that," Velthar replied, trying to understand. "Your technology is impressive, yes, but that's not what defeated us. The Concordat could develop similar weapons if we tried. What we couldn't develop was the mindset that created them." "Tell me what you mean." Velthar gestured at Earth. "You grew up fighting yourselves. Your species has been at war for most of its existence. Nation against nation, tribe against tribe, even family against family sometimes. You've faced extinction threats of your own making multiple times. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, climate collapse. Each time you stood at the edge of destroying yourselves completely." "And?" Deho prompted. "And you survived. Not because you were peaceful, but because you learned when to stop. You developed weapons capable of ending all life on your planet, then chose not to use them. You fought wars that killed millions, then built alliances with former enemies. You destroyed your environment, then worked together to heal it. This constant cycle of conflict and cooperation made you something the Concordat never became." "What's that?" "Dangerous," Velthar said simply. "And wise. You're dangerous because you know how to fight. You're wise because you know when not to. The Concordat was dangerous without wisdom. We had power but no understanding of what it meant to face a real threat. We'd forgotten fear." Deho sipped his tea. "That's part of it. But there's more." The door opened again. Sun He entered carrying a tablet. She was a scientist and philosopher, one of Earth's leading thinkers on interspecies ethics. She had been consulting with the leadership on how to approach the liberation of the enslaved species. "Ambassador Velthar," she said, nodding politely. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Please join us," Velthar said. "I was just trying to understand how I failed so completely." Sun He sat down, arranging her notes. "You failed because the Concordat stopped asking questions. When was the last time your scientists tried something that might fail? When was the last time your military trained against an enemy that could actually beat them? When was the last time your society faced a problem that couldn't be solved with existing technology?" I don't know," Velthar admitted. "Exactly," Sun He continued. "You reached a plateau. You became comfortable. You had enough power to dominate younger species, so you stopped pushing boundaries. Why innovate when you're already the strongest? Why take risks when everything works as expected?" "Humanity never had that luxury," Deho added. "We've always been our own worst enemies. Every generation faced new challenges. New weapons meant new defenses. New defenses meant better weapons. We couldn't stop innovating because if we did, someone else would surpass us." "But it's more than just weapons," Sun He said. "It's philosophy, culture, art, music. Everything humans do, we do in competition and cooperation simultaneously. We compete to be better, but we cooperate to achieve things no individual could do alone. This tension drives us forward constantly." Velthar looked between them. "So humanity's strength comes from conflict?" "It comes from overcoming conflict," Deho corrected. "Every war taught us something. Every mistake cost us something. We paid for our advancement in blood and suffering. That's why we value what we built. That's why we're willing to defend it." He stood and walked to the viewport. "When the Concordat arrived, you saw a young species, barely out of its own solar system, fighting among ourselves, using what you thought was primitive technology. You assumed we'd be easy to control because we seemed weak. We were wrong," Velthar said quietly. "You were blind," Sun He replied, not unkindly. "You saw surface-level conflict and assumed it meant weakness. You didn't understand that our conflicts made us stronger. Every nation that built a weapon, every scientist who pushed boundaries, every soldier who learned tactics in real combat, all of it prepared us for the day we'd face an external threat. And when that day came, Deho said, we were ready. Not because we knew you were coming specifically, but because we prepared for everything. That's the difference between humanity and the species you conquered before. They were peaceful, united, trusting. We were paranoid, divided, and armed to the teeth. And it saved you, Velthar finished. It did, Deho agreed. But now comes the hard part. We have to use that strength wisely. We could crush the Concordat completely. We have the weapons and the numbers. But what would that accomplish? More death? More suffering? Another empire built on exploitation? Mirai entered the observation room, followed by Jiho. The military leaders had been coordinating the liberation fleets. They looked tired but determined. We've made contact with 17 of the enslaved species, Mirai reported. All of them are ready to fight for their freedom once they know they have support. The Concordat garrisons are minimal, mostly administrative. They relied on the species' dependence for control, not military occupation. How long until we can begin liberation operations? Deho asked. We're ready now, Jiho said. We have task forces assigned to each system. The plan is to arrive, disable Concordat forces, and turn control back to the local governments. We don't occupy. We don't take over. We just remove the Concordat presence and leave. Some of them will need help, Sunhee pointed out. The Concordat has been controlling their technology, their economy, their development for generations in some cases. They won't be able to stand on their own immediately. Then we help them, Deho said, but as partners, not masters. We offer technology, resources, expertise. They decide how to use it. Their sovereignty is absolute. Velthar spoke up. And what about my species? What happens to the Concordat worlds? That depends on you, Mirai said. Do you keep trying to maintain control? Do you fight us? Or do you accept that the old way is over and work with us to build something better? I've sent messages to the Central Command, Velthar said, explaining what happened here, recommending we accept Earth's terms and join their alliance as equals. Some are listening. Others want to fight. I can't predict what they'll choose. Then we prepare for both possibilities, Jiho said pragmatically. We hope for peace but prepare for war. It's what we've always done. The conversation continued, planning the logistics of galactic reorganization. It was complex work, requiring coordination across dozens of species and thousands of star systems. But as they talked, Velthar began to understand something fundamental about humanity. They didn't want to be conquerors. They didn't want to build an empire. What they wanted was safety and cooperation, but they had learned that wanting peace wasn't enough. You had to be strong enough to defend peace, wise enough to know when to fight and when to negotiate, and humble enough to help others without controlling them. These were lessons the Concordat had never learned. They had confused dominance with leadership, control with cooperation, fear with respect. May I ask one more question? Velthar said as the meeting was ending. Of course, Deho replied. What if another species, years from now, challenges Earth? What if someone develops weapons that surpass yours? What if you become the ones who are threatened? Deho smiled. Then we'll adapt. We'll innovate. We'll find a way to survive. That's what humans do. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We find a way forward no matter how impossible it seems. And if you can't, then we'll go down fighting, Mirai said bluntly. But we'll make sure the galaxy remembers us. We'll make sure that whatever comes after learns from our example. That's legacy. That's what matters. Sunhee shook her head gently, but I don't think it will come to that. Because we're not just building military strength. We're building relationships, alliances, a community where species help each other. If Earth is ever threatened, we won't face it alone. We'll have friends who remember we freed them, partners who share our values. That's stronger than any weapon. 1 year later, Deho stood on the observation deck of Gateway Station, a massive new construction orbiting a freed world called Varesh. The station served as a meeting place for the Free Species Coalition, the alliance that had replaced the Concordat's forced empire. Yunwu joined him at the viewport. Below, the planet Varesh glowed with city lights that hadn't been seen in 3 generations. The Concordat had suppressed their industry, keeping them dependent. Now, with Earth's help and their own determination, they were rebuilding. 32 species have joined the coalition, Hyunwoo reported. All as independent members. No junior status. No protectorates. Just equals working together. And the Concordat? Deho asked.